Okay, there we go. We're good. So you're going to Groton.
Yeah.
So right now, for me, Groton is up in the air. Originally, I was going to fly, but I started running the flight through my flight software. It's going to be 20 hours of flying there and back.
Yeah, I heard.
And it's going to be like $1,800 in fuel or something like that. So it's a little pricey.
Yes, it is.
And then flying, it's 6 hours each way commercially. And then I don't know what I'd do to get boats up there, if I could even bring boats.
Yeah.
And then the airport we fly into, Providence or whatever, is like an hour away.
Wow.
So I don't know. We'll see if I can swing it, I will. But it's that's a lot of money that could be allocated to like SUBFEST.
Yeah. Well, you heard that whole thing with me and you know, why I wasn't going, and it's still hard for me to go at that time. But just the fact that it was changed because of somebody's birthday just bothers me. But Ed brought up a good point. If he wants to have it in May, that's fine. The people that can go in May and like it in May, they can go. Why can't just Joe Schmo have one in September too? Like an Eastern Conference. And if people want to go to it, that's fine. If they don't, you know, I know it's close to Cohoda, but there's a lot of people that aren't going to go there, and but it'd be nice to have a place for them to go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure.
I want to talk to that guy, Mike. I hate doing things over the phone and texting and this, and that. So I'm going to bring the sea view. I have a dissertation to give and all that stuff. And so hopefully we'll have a good time. And who knows, maybe we could have 2 times at Groton, you know?
Yeah, so just a heads up, if I understand the conversation stream correctly, Mike was simply facilitating communication with the base. He is not in any way, shape, or form organizing this event
Exactly.
whatsoever.
I understand that. Yep. Yeah, I understand that.
Okay,
So,
all right. I just wanted to make sure people weren't reaching out to him like, oh,
no,
I'm gonna be showing up, and where do I go, and what do I do, and what are the times, and
yeah, no, nothing like that. I just if he that's the guy you got to talk to, that's all I want. You know what I'm saying? So it'll be fun. I'm there to enjoy myself, and like I said, maybe we can get 2 of them at Groton. You know, so
yeah. Yo.
Help, you could ship you over here and I'll take them in the van.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I could probably bring my new little 212 kit because it's so tiny. You know, it's like yay big. So if I could make a transport case that won't get TSA, you know, super excited, maybe I could just bring it on a plane with me.
I did that once, and that was 9/11. And when I went through the X-ray machine, lost their minds.
Yeah, but I mean, I could probably check it if I packed it, and I'd feel better about checking it on the airplane. At least then it's only being handled, you know, twice instead of 100 times.
Do you still have that 1144 kilo?
Not ready to go. I mean, it's the same size as the 212, and I'd love to show everybody that kit too.
Yeah, agreed. That could be a reason for you going there, other than Hanner.
Yeah,
It's your bread and butter.
We'll see if we can make it happen. On the topic of events, though, I have committed to SUBFEST. So I'll be over the course of the next couple of days putting the preliminary information up on both the forums and my website. But it's the 14th to the 17th, and per our conversation last year, I guess it was, at the event, we're going to have a full day Thursday. So we've got the whole place booked for anybody that wants to come out. So one of the challenges that we had was that people were showing up, on Friday and hoping to run, but it took them like a day to get their boats sorted out. And so we'll open it up a day earlier, and Thursday can be the, garage tinker trim day. And then that'll give 2 full days of runtime. And then Sunday can be the, last kick at the can / farewell day. I am also this year for the first time going to look into booking out a block of rooms at the, I think it was the Hampton Inn we stayed at last time. Yeah, Hampton Inn Ringgold. So that's where hopefully we can get a discounted rate for everyone.
What is it, about 30 minutes away?
I think it was a little less than that. I think it was more like 20 or something like that. It was a fine drive. I didn't feel it was excessive or anything. It's pretty well there's hotels slightly closer, but that was it was a solid hotel. I thought that was a good one to stay at. So we'll block out, a dozen rooms or something like that, or just an incentivized rate, hopefully, and see what we can make happen there. And then the other thing I was going to throw out at you guys, so obviously, it's a challenge for a lot of people, further away to attend. Is there anybody here or that of who's up in like the Northeast who would be interested or willing to be the donkey to haul boats from up there down to the event so that people could fly rather than having to drive down? I'm just wondering if that might help, alleviate some of the pushback that people have from attending further away, if they could just hop on a plane and then just organize some logistics for, carpooling and stuff like that.
That should be a threat.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll put something up on there. So maybe we could have one coming from like the Northeast, and maybe, another one coming from the West or something like that. And obviously whoever would do it, wouldn't be doing it for free. I've had some people reach out hoping that sort of thing would happen. And they're like, absolutely, it'll contribute, money towards the fuel and time and all of that. So it could be, that whoever ends up doing that could have their whole trip paid for just by, accepting boats from other people. If they're going anyway, it might be a decent idea to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So keep that in the back of your head. I'll keep the thread going, or get the thread going, I should say. And then I would also like to announce and throw a big shout out to a certain individual who may or may not be present here, who donated the entire event cost for the venue to the event. So supporting the event by single-handedly paying the rental of the venue. So that's going to be huge. Huge shout out to Steve. Thanks, Steve. That's massive. It's going to go a long way to helping us do more stuff there. And
I hope it helps.
yeah, absolutely it will, for sure.
Thank you, Steve.
Very cool. I'm working right now on the logo for the new event for the shirts. We'll see how that turns out. I'm still playing with it, but I mean, I can share it. This is what it looks like right now. Still goofing around. Maybe it'll change. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Looks good, Bobby.
Got boats from a whole bunch of different navies in there. Of course, I shamelessly stole the artwork, but I thought it was kind of cool.
You're not going to have the Nautilus in there?
Like I'm scared of Disney.
Oh.
Beware the mouse.
Maybe we'll do that for the fifth year, for year number 5, because it's my favorite submarine. We'll reserve it for the the half decade event next following year.
Not only that, it's kind of like your calling card.
Yeah, exactly. Worst case scenario, and I could always put the 571 up there, right? Not that people would immediately recognize it, but
Yeah.
yeah, you bet. And then in terms of like our shop news, I had posted up a whole bunch of stuff in the bargain bin. I'm not even sure what's left. We had like 15 orders come through on Friday, so a lot of that stuff got cleared out. But if any of you guys are interested in delving into the world of 3D printing, or if you're already in the world of 3D printing and you want to dip your toes in resin printing, I am selling my big M3 Max resin printer. It's in the bargain bin right now. If you wanted to grab that, it's like half price of a new one. And then we got a whole bunch of cool stuff waiting to get built out in our free time. Jason and I are excited because I told you guys about that Vietnam monitor flamethrower boat. So I also picked up, and I should see if I can pull up the picture while I'm blathering here. As part of this deal from Craig up there. So obviously I'm a big like Batman fan, and he ended up, as part of this deal, giving me this guy. So we're gonna repaint this in the more classic scheme, but we're gonna do some upgrades. So it's gonna have a functional turbine, a flamethrower, and machine guns that pop up and down, and lights. But it's fully RC. He's got it all rigged up. So not a sub. I'm still excited about it though.
Lawsuit City.
Well, only only if I sell it to some idiot who burns his house down. I'll just be careful when I run it around the parking lot here.
This guy uses. Look at this.
Yeah.
This guy uses a disclaimer when you sell it, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. We are not in any way, shape, or form responsible for you doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, that works at roller skating rinks throughout the world. But I think other than that, we are just plugging away. That Collins class should be done hopefully next week. And then we got Arathus is on, and a couple of little Nautilus display models. I had the flying sub in the pool today, Jason. We need to adjust. Where did he go? Oh, there he is.
I'm here.
It ran really well. We just need to adjust the tilts on the jets. It's like angled out slightly, so at full throttle it always wants to go down. So we just got to tweak that a little bit. But other than that, it ran really, really good.
About time.
Yeah.
Where do you get those pumps from, Bob?
They're online everywhere. It's just a standard Rule inline bilge pump. It's I think 280 GPM Rule bilge pump.
Rule bilge pump?
Yep, Rule, R-U-L-E, inline bilge pump.
Okay.
You said you were having a problem, a specific problem. Did you ever identify it?
Yeah, it was a faulty transmitter. The entire channel on the transmitter went dead. So we couldn't figure out why it wasn't working, and finally it was the transmitter. It was a VEX transmitter. You know, the VEX transmitter, they really filled a void, but you know, I'm kind of on the fence about using them for big builds, just because they don't have the range that like a standard hobby transmitter has. The internals are a knockoff of the Futaba radios.
Or they may even have been private labeled 4-Vex from Futaba, but I know for a fact they have about a third the range of a standard Futaba. Now, I talked to that gentleman from the last DiveTribe who's selling those receivers. So I've got all those receivers, they're in stock right now, and those are available. But he also did a whole bunch of research, and apparently, I didn't know this, but transmitters are okay running at higher voltage. And the more voltage you run through them, the better range you get. So he actually ran his transmitters, I think he said he runs at 12 or 14 volts.
Whoa.
And they're perfectly fine. So most, as you know, are like 9.6. So you can actually, if you wanted to, make up a custom battery pack, pump it through the radio, and you'll increase your range by like 30%, which is pretty cool. He said there is one though, I can't remember if it was JR. They do have a current limiting resistor before the transmitter pack, so it won't allow anything more than that 9.6 through, regardless of what you feed it. But that was on just that one manufacturer. So that was interesting.
Everybody's got to check their mute. There's some noise through.
Yeah, someone's breathing heavy into their mic. Oh, they found it. Good job. Oh, no. It's not me, is it? Hold on. Not me.
If that's breathing, they better stop smoking.
I believe it might
I
be
am your
Steve.
father.
I believe it might be Steve because his screen keeps lighting up as if somebody's talking.
Huh. Who is that, sorry?
Steve, he took care of it.
Oh, there we go. All right, cool.
Oh, okay.
All right. What's everybody got going on? So, I mean, surely people have got their boats out. We are coming up on like on season here now. Things are going to start thawing for you northern folk soon. Do you not usually bring your boats out till like May or what? You're muted, Ken. I can see you talking.
There we go. I haven't touched my boats in SUBFEST, but next week, because of Groton, I'll be starting on them.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah, I was taking the suggestion of a lot of people on trying out the Freon. And I know they said not to get the one with the oil in it.
Right.
So I specified no oil. It doesn't say anything on the can about oil. But the Freon, it's the only thing I can contribute it to is wrecking all my pneumatic cylinders. The crash doors were the first thing I put in the Seaview, and I made the cylinder, and they've been flawless all these years. It just worked beautiful. And I tried the Freon, and everything is screwed up. Nothing works right. So
so you're using Freon to actuate your actuators, your cylinders?
Instead of using the they're all pneumatic. So I was using the Badger
Propel, yeah.
liquid air, but you can't find that anymore. It's hard to get. It's $38 a can now, and it's the only one that really works. The little testers one, they don't have any oomph to them. So I was going to try the Freon, and I'm sorry I did.
It's eating your cylinders, Frank.
It's eating the rubbers. Someone told me today, Bob Gato told me today, that if there is any kind of oil in it that they use or some other stuff, it attacks the rubber.
Yep.
So I have a feeling that's what it is.
Same thing happened to all my Clipper valves about 30 years ago.
Does anybody have a source for non-oil Freon?
Well, I was told to go right to an auto body shop, an auto shop, supply shop, and specify no oil. The one I got over the internet, it must have had something else in it, or for whatever reason, because I know some kind of slime came out of it too, and I have a feeling it had oil in it. Just didn't say it on the can.
Yeah,
I would go to an import car place, Frank.
Yeah.
Not a domestic car place, but a Mercedes, BMW repair place.
Well, right now I'm trying it with CO2 and it seems to work really well. So we'll see what happens.
So you swapped out the whole system. You got like CO2 cartridges and a regulator and like
the one that you used for your ballast that time in one of your videos. I got that, and you can get a 25 grand cylinder, and I made a manifold, and I'm going to try hooking that up to all my pneumatic little devices that work.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens, because it's really easy to get. They're cheap. You got the regulator on there. You can adjust the pressure, and it seems to be working well. So
cool.
Ed, when you did your little gas test, was one of the gases nitrogen? Did you test?
No, I tested Freon, the oil-free Freon, which I don't understand why there's a problem finding it. I seem to find that more than I find the oil-based, and it's clearly labeled.
Yeah, I'm going to try again.
I'm not telling you my supply because I'm getting it at $6 a can. I don't want the market flooded. So
yeah, why would
go out? You're well. Google, it's your friend. But all kidding aside, no, it was Freon and CO2 were the two gases mentioned in that article, and it was all about expansion ratio.
Yeah.
The CO2, I think, is a viable. The 12-gram cartridge, you have the regulator, and that's a
eco-friendly.
No, it's not eco-friendly. Nothing is eco-friendly.
I don't know. I pump out gas every day. It's
that's methane, dude. You can power Starship with that. But all kidding aside, if you read that article, I'm talking about completely blowing the tank. And it all depends on the volume of your tank. So if it's an expansion ratio of 300 to 1, right? 1 ounce, 1 cubic inch is going to expand to 300 cubic inches. I mean, that's it. At certain, at the perfect temperature and all that. There's a lot of math involved, but it's close enough, for rule of thumb, it's close enough for government work. And but that's why I use both that and a diaphragm pump, because 90% of the time I'm at periscope depth anyway. So just like a combat submarine, and Dave will attest to this, we didn't use the compressed air unless we actually had to. We normally just plane up the periscope depth and switch the low pressure blower to our main ballast tanks. And 30 minutes later, we'd be at surface, and you reserve your gas, you reserve all that. Yeah, that's the stuff that Ray's got it.
Yeah,
Ray's got the source.
Yeah, Ed, you and I bought a case each of this about a year or so ago.
It doubled in a year.
And maybe, but it lasts a long time. It'll last the whole summer.
On it again?
What's the? I can see what it is, but is there like a manufacturer?
No, don't tell him. Don't tell him, Ray.
Is it backwards?
It was for 12 cans. It was like 60. Look, it's on eBay.
Yeah,
it's on eBay. Okay, it's on eBay. I got it 2 years ago for $62 a case of 12 can.
Right.
What is it, 62, right? And now it's like 124, like doubled in price. And you know, inflation.
Hey,
I
hey,
don't know, me buying
the
cases
economy's
of it.
just doing fine. We're
Yeah,
doing great.
I think it's being phased out.
that too. I mean, but it's gonna take a while to replace it.
Seems like yesterday, they went from R12 to R22 to this stuff. They keep moving the goalpost.
Well, I got 3 cases of it in the shed. I'm good for a while. I figured you know, when the price started climbing like that, I said, get it now before it goes crazy or it disappears.
That
Probably got-
particular can is, I see it for $21.95 on eBay, and there's a 2-pack for $33.95.
Wow. Yeah, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to raise the price.
So I think I forgot what it was. I think to my 148 skipjack, I think I can get 3 surfacings, complete blowing the tank, 3 or 4 from 112 ounce. Was it 12 gram CO2 something? You know, allowing. But I like to have reserves. I think that's with a reserve of like a third, so I could probably do it more like 5 times.
Yeah,
I always like to have a reserve.
I'm only using it for emergency blow. That's all.
Yeah, well, that's the way to do it. That's
yeah. And one of the 16-gram bottles will empty out a 5-gallon pail if you turn it upside down. And you fill it with water, turn it upside down. It'll fill that with air. You know, completely empty it. So
there
that's
you go. That's a number. It's a number you can work with when wondering how much you have to carry on board.
And those are the 16-gram bottles. You can get 25-gram bottles now, you know, threaded bottles, which it's almost double. So.
Well, you know, how often do you go? How do you know the owner of the boat got to decide how often do they go? How often are they realistically running?
Yeah.
I run every other week. Okay, so I go through gas quite a bit, you know. There's always glitching or here, that, this, that, the other thing, or I like to impress the people with a full blow. Wow, that's a bad choice of words.
I'll say.
It's a great choice of words.
I'm turning red.
Yes, America was
It
saying
got
that.
warm in here. It got what I heard. I'm sure we all heard the jokes, right? 150 men go down, 75 couples come up. But you know, it's up to your needs. You know I run quite often, and so you know. But if you run 2 or 3 times a year, which I think personally, I don't see people until like a regatta or something, they're hidden away most of the year. But it's on your personal needs to decide, you know, do you need if you would go CO2, do you want a 12-gram cartridge or do you want a monstrous 25-gram cartridge? You may not need it. You know, do you store it do you leave it in there between runs or do you empty it out? You know, is it safe to store it, you know, in your hot model shed or wherever you keep that thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I know when I'm done with a boat that has a gas system, I'll discharge it fully.
Yeah.
Before I put it on. I know it's a waste of gas and money, but I would way rather be safe than you know, have it pop a hose or discharge when I don't want it to.
I did have a CO2 go off in my truck once, and it scared the living shit out of me as I was driving down the highway.
I have a 125 psi regulator, safety valve. Okay, which because in the sun when the sub would sit in the sun, those gray hoses, and Ray can attest to this, the gray hose would develop a bubble in it. Not because of the pressure, because it would get soft in the heat. So I was tired of replacing those, and I now use 125 PSI relief valves. And I would notice more often than not, when I go get the boat prepped to go out the next day, I would find the tank empty. So it must have been heating up or something in the garage and popping off every now and then, or have a small leak somewhere.
This was like about 20, 30 years ago, and I was just getting interest in submarines. I didn't have the first clues what the hell I was doing. And I thought I was going to use a paintball tank type system with some kind of regulator. And I went and had this tank filled up. I don't even remember the size of it, just what they attached to a paintball gun, you know. And I don't know if he overfilled it or what, but I put it in my truck and put it in the back seat, back under the seat where it was in the shade, so I could drive home. And going down the highway, that sucker went off like a gunshot, and I just nearly drove it right off the road into the trees.
There are two things. Everybody knows Johann Sauer. He uses air. He uses a small emergency scuba tank. Right, Dave? I see you back there.
Oh,
Johann. Yeah.
Yeah, he's using a diver's bailout bottle.
And what's the pressure in that, Dave?
Between 28 and 43, depending on if it's a tech diver's outfit or not.
Right, and that's 1,000 PSI, right?
Betcha.
Yeah. So you're getting out of the realm of the hobbyist and entering the realm of the brave. And there was another
You're
thing.
in the realm of you're asking for it.
Yes. How about, do you remember the PVC homemade, remember they used to make the tanks, the pressure tanks?
Yeah, and it was Matt Thor went ballistic. He's a materials engineer and set us all straight on that.
Yeah, it blew up in somebody's face because I think the story was somebody grabbed a PVC that was sitting in their backyard for years. They get UV damage.
The first thing on Schedule 40 PVC says not for pressurized systems.
Yeah.
Well, and then too, when you're discharging, you know, that gas, it freezes hard. So that plastic, regardless, is going to become really brittle.
Stressed out.
Brittlement over time. I think things may work great the first time, but it's that cycling back and forth like an airplane fuselage.
Well, you know, the Type 9 I got from you, Bob, you know, the fissuring on the cylinder, from that gas over time, I'm just wondering when it's going to blow. I mean, it looks like a mosaic now, but it holds tight.
Yeah, that was like crazing on the inside surface, right?
Yeah.
The thing about Dwayne's cylinders, he uses like it's at least 1/8 inch thick polycarbonate.
Yeah.
I took a look at it. It looks like it's just on the surface, like it's a surface.
Yeah.
You know, crazing on there, just like if you when you paint something and it gets that spider.
But when you're topping it off, it freezes hard as hell.
Yeah.
I actually had a question for Frank there, if he's got a moment. And watching Ed's video he posted up recently of your amazing work on your boats.
Thank you.
You had a watertight box in your Seaview there.
Oh, you're the one
that had these pass-through. I'm the one. What?
Did you put that you were interested in where I got those or something? Was that
well,
you?
I did order the one watertight box that you had. I found that online and ordered that. I'm still waiting for it to get here to experiment around with that. But you had another smaller watertight box that had a bunch of your electrical cables coming out, and I was wondering, can you explain? Are those tiny little cable glands, or are they just some kind of little pass through? Because you can't quite tell on the video.
Were they orange wires coming out? That's the radio box. It's in there. And what I do for that is I gang all the positive and the negatives together. So I don't have to have 3 wires for each servo coming out. There's 16 channels.
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
that would be a mess. So what I do is I gang them together, and there's only one red, one black coming in and, going out. And then those are all the signal wires. And what I do is I get that fish tank silicone tubing, they use for the fish tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And that silicone wire fits a little tight in there. So you have to, what I do is I get a piece of brass tubing, put it through about an inch piece of that silicone tubing, and slide the wire through it to where I want it, and then take the brass tube out. So now that silicone tubing is embedded in that air silicone tubing, if you know what I'm talking about.
So wait a minute, it's a silicone tube that comes through the actual case, or it's a brass tube that's permanent?
It's hard to get the silicone wire to go through that fish tank tubing, okay? Because silicone against silicone, it's sticky, you know what I'm saying? So you can wet it and try and pull it through, but then what happens is you pull the silicone, the wire in the silicone moves, and you get all kinds of other problems. But
I think he understood that. I think the question, and I have the same one, is how do you connect your hose to the actual box, the silicone tube?
So what I do is I just I take a veneer and you measure the silicone tubing, and I just find a drill that's slightly under that. And then what I do is I cut that I have a piece here I'm looking for, but I cut that tubing on a slight angle and I wet it, just with some spit or some water or whatever. And I slide it through and just pull it through with the wire. And it's tight enough where no water goes in or out. And the wire, it actually forms a nice through hole, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. So, and really when you get the wire in there, it would push out.
It pushes even more. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And it works great.
The other thing you could do is put a brass nipple into the case and then slip that hose over that. But what you're talking about would be, simpler and easier probably.
Yeah, that's it. And the only thing I use the brass tubing for is to get the signal wire through that rubber tubing. So I push that through, which goes through easy because it's nice and rigid, slide the signal wire through, and then pull the brass tube out. So now it's in there, you don't have to kind of like push it through. It'd be like, I don't know, pissing up a rope if you didn't have that brass tube in there.
Yep.
Well, I'm definitely interested in this method because I've been experimenting with some watertight connectors that are not working, not doing the job. And I'm looking for a different method. And I've seen these glands that you can get, and I haven't tried them yet, but I'm going to try working with some of those.
Simple and easy. I mean, the boats don't go down that deep where there's a lot of pressure, especially if you're 2.4. There's hardly any pressure at all. And that just works so great because you just slide it in there. And the good thing about it is if something presses up against that, the silicone will bend. Where if you had something rigid, it might bend or break the seal, or the silicone bends so nice. Yeah. And it works out really great.
Yeah, so if you can get all different kinds of that, like on Amazon, in almost any size you want, the silicone tubing.
Yeah, I just went to the aquarium place, and it's on a roll. It's cheap, and it's this stuff here. But it's to try and get this through there, it's really hard. So that's why I say I put a brass tube through it, and then push this through the brass tube into where I want it to be, and then just take the brass tube out, and it seats itself. And then I, like I said, you measure this, go a drill step smaller, push that through, and it's great. It wiggles around, and I haven't had a problem yet, and it's easy.
That's really cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I've tried everything, and like I said, 16 channels to do that with 16 servo wires, through that box, there'd be nothing left. You know,
But then
with all
what do you do, Frank, to, because I assume you eventually are going to want to take your box out of the sub. So do you have a connector for the servos to the box, or are they actually just connected by the wire and there's no way to disconnect them?
No, everything in my box is in my submarine is you can take anything out. It's all I'm getting old now. I forget the word, but it's easy to take out.
Accessible.
Yeah, accessible.
Modular, yeah.
So yeah, it works really well. Oh, here we go. Here's one that's lit up nice. Now, if I can only get it in the camera. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I have to do this first before I can put it in the camera. So here you have it. These are see how it's nice and flexible and everything. And, you know, and you can go a lot of different size wires through those tubes.
Yeah,
it works.
Frank?
Yes, dear.
Do you have a bushing, or is that, let me understand this correctly, or do you have that silicone tubing just adhered to the hull? Or is there
it's not even adhered, Ed. He just pushes it through the hole.
I just push it through.
The friction keeps it in place.
Yeah, it doesn't move. Yeah, once it's in there, it's very hard to move it because it's basically a press fit.
You're press fitting the silicone tubing in a hole.
Yes.
Okay, and this hole is open to sea, and it can compress from water. Silicone tubing.
What he's getting at, Ed, like you push that the hole for the silicone tube is slightly smaller than the tube, so it's a
I see.
And then furthermore, when he jams the wire in there, it forces that tube out against the bulkhead, so you've got even more compression against it. So you're probably right. Yeah, if you were to dive down to like 20 feet, maybe that water could potentially force its way, you know, between the silicone tube and the watertight hole. But like he said, you know, especially 2.4 boats, you're never going to be operating at that depth unless you have a critical failure, in which case you got
and you end up on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. It's
you see, I do it with a plastic sleeve with the tubing over that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could, you know, that's just my personal. I use a 187 ID plastic tube, which is 250 over. So I drill a 250 hole. I mean, what you're doing is perfectly fine, but I'd like to, I know mine have been working that way for 5-6 years or longer. I'd like, you know, this is the first time out we're seeing this. So I'd like to sit back and see some time go by before.
Yeah. And you can see everything ends here, and then I just plug in. You know, I could take the whole box out, you know, service what I have to service, and then, you know, do what I got to do.
And you're saying it's just
interference fit.
And you're saying it's just standard aquarium just silicone tubing is all I gotta look for.
Aquarium air tubing. Yep.
You can use silicone fuel tubing. You fly, right, Dave?
Yeah. Well, yeah. My eyesight's not so good anymore, but
same thing.
The blue stuff.
Yep, that's it.
I got rolls of it.
Yeah, I've got some laying around here. I could probably.
Yes, finagle with that.
Yeah, I use that too. Because that's, I think, a different ID than a lot of the fish, the aquarium stuff. That might be a smaller ID, so the silicone wire fits a lot tighter in there too. I don't know whose sub that is in the background, but that is beautiful. Yeah, I tried all those the through holes. I made a lot of them, and I bought some, and I always have trouble with the glands inside with them. If you over tighten them or they move a little bit, you know, I have problems. But these with the silicone tubing, I've never had a problem with.
Yeah, the problem I'm having now, I'm testing I've got a little connector. I'm using my Neptune as a test bed, and I've got a pass-through connector that's in the front glass piece. And then you can connect a connector on the outside and a connector on the inside so you can separate everything. But what happens is if I have both of them connected up so that the little lights or whatever is working, the water is actually coming through, I think coming through the wire and going through the connectors, through the rubber piece in the connector and getting to the inside. And so I've tried sealing it up with some goop, you know, and it just still comes through somehow. And I'm just not liking that setup.
That's super valid. Sorry to cut in. And I know Dave talked about this too. Like you really got to watch at pressure. That water will force its way right up through stranded wire through the inside. So maybe not so much a worry, like, you know, what Frank was saying at shallow depths, but if you operate your boat at pressure,
this one's even leaking pretty shallow. And but if I take the outer connector off and put the little cap on it, and it's got a seal on it, then it seals up just fine because of that cap there. But I think it's just coming through the wire from the outside through the connector when I actually have it connected up. And then it just starts taking on water, and then all the alarms start going off and the crew's panicking.
The wire insulation acts as a conduit, permitting that water to wick into the weave of the conductor. That's your leak path.
I had a nick in 2.4 gig, the RG187. I had a nick in the outer jacket casing, and the capillary action compartment fogged up within 15-20 minutes. And this was at least 2 feet from where the nick occurred, because I had a scope bent situation. And it bent the scope and it nicked the outer casing and right through the ground. And I wouldn't believe, you know, you couldn't believe it, like 2 feet, not a lot, but it gets through there.
Frank, I got some bad news for you.
Yeah.
Your model hasn't been wet yet, has it?
Yeah, it's been under. But the dive box.
How long?
What's that?
How deep? How long?
The 2.4, and I sat it about a half hour underwater. But the dive boxes I take and I sink them before I put them in the sub, and I'll put them in 2 feet of water, you know, whatever I can find that's deep, and let them sit there for an hour or so.
Have you tried to operate the system while it's submerged?
What do you mean? What's the system?
Turn on the transmitter, turn on the receiver, and jiggle while it's submerged.
All right, I'll try that. No, I haven't done that.
Let it warm up.
Stay tuned. You're going to have nothing but grounds.
What do you mean, as it warms up?
No, as the water gets into the conductors, you've already gained your 2 elements, the red and the black wires.
Yeah.
All right. And now you've got bare-fisted signal wires, and they look like they terminate wet. Is that correct?
No, they're all, they end up sealed.
On both ends?
Well, one side is in the box.
Right.
And the other side is at the servo, but with the plug, all my plugs are sealed.
All right.
So he should be in good shape unless the insulation gets nicked.
Yeah, yeah.
In theory.
And when you said your servos are sealed off there at the plug, am I just assuming that you're just using some kind of silicone or sealant or something? Or
well, everybody was saying that I haven't, you know, this is my first submarine, and it hasn't really been, it's only been in a test tank so far. So far I haven't had where it's, like you say, it's made voyage. But everybody's saying with their ships, what they do is they wipe a little silicone grease on all the connections, and they have no problem. And I'm kind of like a nitpicker, and I've made these things where it actually here, let me show you. I don't know if you can see them. If you see those little black boxes,
Yep.
the servo wire goes in one side and the signal wires come out the other side. Those little boxes are 1" by 2" and they're filled with grease, and the connections are sitting inside silicone grease. So for that to, get water in it, it's got to push a lot of grease around. And these holes that are there, I make sure that, there is grease in there. So I put the wire in there, screw this thing shut, and it's sealed. And then I just pump the silicone grease in it. And if I had to get at them, I just unscrew them, take them apart. It's a little gooey. I wipe them down and then, make the connections.
Is that something you 3D printed or something yourself, or?
No, I bought them online. You can buy a bag of them for a few bucks.
Somebody mentioned warming up, and I'm having some issues with my OTW on upholder on it taking a minute or so to get ready to go. Once everything is on and appears to be ready, it needs more time,
What's the anomaly?
I don't know.
Well, does the pump work? Do the turbos work?
Yeah. It's like it's warming up,
Is it all of the different subsystems, or is it propulsion or pump? Or
it tends to be the pump and the motor, and they just need to rest for a moment, and think about what's going on, and then everything's okay.
Are you using a battery eliminator circuit?
Pardon me, David?
Are you using a battery eliminator circuit? By that, I don't mean the one in the speed controller.
No.
Might consider that.
And also, depending on I can't remember which it was, but like depending on the electronic speed controllers or other electronics that you use, like sometimes they go through like a boot up sequence. Like I've had a few ESCs that'll actually take 3 or 4 seconds before they will engage.
Yes.
Just like the AD2 pitch controller, when you turn that on, it thinks about things for 3 or 4 seconds, and then it turns on. So if it's only that amount of time, that's probably what's happening. But if it's longer than that, then something weird's going on.
Okay. And what did you again suggest, David?
Purchase a 3 or 5 amp dedicated battery eliminator circuit. Bob sells them. You'll hardwire that in your battery bus, and you'll output a straight 5 volts into your receiver bus.
So a 3 or 5 amp, a dedicated battery eliminator circuit.
BEC. Bravo Echo Charlie.
Yep. In Bob's catalog.
Very good. Thank you.
I've had so many boats crap out on me, and it turned out it was the internal BEC in the speed controller that was to blame. So
thank you.
Now most, like 90% of the time, I'll have a standalone dedicated BEC that'll only power the receiver.
Thanks, guys.
And that's good. That's good, actually. Especially for some of us with big boats. You don't really think about current draw. But at stall, like a standard servo, I think it's an amp or an amp and a half. And if you got 4 or 5 servos and you're cycling and moving, that's a lot of current, and it's all getting sucked, through these BECs from the speed controller. And a lot of times those are only 2 or 3 amps output.
1.5 is typical.
Yeah,
that's exactly right, Bob.
So I've actually been ganging the hot side, the positives off the receiver to a separate +5 volt bus. So it's not pulling through the receiver, because you have a +5 volt coming into the receiver. And some of these servos use 7 volts now, if I'm correct. The the high voltage servos. So I'm actually using a separate bus. I'm bringing, in this build here, okay, I'm bringing them all not to the receiver, but to a separate bus.
So you're actually powering your servos off of their own dedicated power circuit as opposed to pulling through the receiver.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Because, these are large, waterproof servos drawing 6 to 7 volts. So I want a separate power supply.
Yeah.
It's for that big 148 688.
That's a great idea, Ed.
That's a really good idea.
It's, and I'm not saying, I didn't design the board in any receiver, and I don't know who's doing it. But you would think they have a nice dedicated they have a dedicated ground plane or a ground layer in that board, dedicated 5-volt layer. They're probably four-layer boards. They have signal layers outside and then a 5-volt plane and a ground plane. But I still don't know, because if you look at it, usually the pins are at the edge of the board, so they don't get a lot of plane. And it's hard for you guys to envision, but it's a row of pins soldered into one contiguous solid +5 supply plane. Okay, and they also have a ground plane and a multi-layer printed circuit board. So the ground is usually the first set of pins, right? Ground, 5-volt signal as you go from the edge of the board in.
Yep.
Okay, so the grounds are really near the edge of the board. I can get technical here, but I don't, who knows? I don't know what kind of thermal relief spokes they have on that plane feeding the pins. Those are what, 25 mil square pins. So they should have 4 spokes of 25 thousandths of 50,000, 100 thousandths of copper to it per pin. But still, I don't want to be drawing that through, especially now when I'm getting these larger and larger models. I don't want to draw it through the receiver because the supply is coming into the receiver and then distributing back out to the servos. So that's just something, again, I could be wearing suspenders with my belt here, but I'm just trying to eliminate possible problems.
No, it's great stuff, Ed. Thanks.
And again, for your smaller models that have 4 servos tops, don't give it a second thought. Go with the standard, BEC and rig it off. But Frank, how many servos you got in that thing?
Gee, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Are they all drawing power through your receiver?
No, they go to a bus.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Ed, with the upholder, you too, Bob, you are pushing a lot of water. When that thing starts submerging, and you could just feel it straining. From a power consumption standpoint.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, and I've never goofed around with this. Has anybody ever played with overclocking their servos in terms of voltage? So they're pulling 5. I'm just wondering, because I know I've put a 6-volt power to a receiver and it's perfectly fine. But like, what would happen if you bumped it up to like 9 volts? Like, I assume it would be okay.
The magic smoke leaves.
I do know one thing. When I was testing the high power servo with my Jetty radio system, it kept yelling at me low voltage on the receiver alarm because the 7-volt servo is trying to, and I could see, I could see the power drop, actually happening in real time. And again, I don't know, people like Gene Berger, who all the guys with the big boats, right? These big, massive boats, they ran for years with this and haven't had a problem. I'm just not sure about, but then again, electronics were a little beefier back then.
Yeah, they
The
were.
receivers, right? They were a little beefier back then. We don't, you don't know what you get. These boards are so small now. Maybe I'm just, like I said, belts and suspenders, overthinking it.
Yeah, I should. That feels like an experiment video, Jason. I think we should goof around with a servo, and we'll do like 5 volts, 6 volts, 9 volts, 12 volts, and see what happens to them.
And I'm worried more about a clean power supply than I am a nice clean, so you don't get the jittering and all that you'll get when you're suddenly dropping voltage a lot. You know what I'm saying? So it's not only whether you're going to smoke the board, but if you're pulling, like you have 6 or 7 servos pulling, you're getting, spikes in your voltage rails. Are there any double E's here that can back me up? But you see what I'm saying is you're drawing these things, you're getting spikes. And I don't know, analog versus digital servos, I don't know. It always seems like we're chasing these gremlins. Who has not chased gremlins with jittery servos? Raise your hand. That's always been I'd always rather have a cleaner, and that's kind of like why I steer towards 2.4, all arguments aside. I just like the non-jittery, the packet. It's just, I remember too many times at Groton, you spent months getting this thing right, Ray? We'd spend months getting these subs, they'd run perfect. You bring it to Groton, and the Groton genies would come out, and this thing would just jitter.
Well, I'm with you, Ed. Like I've told Jason, and I think Jason's on my side with this too. But I have never fought, receiver or servo gremlins with a 2.4 system yet, and I've done at least a dozen boats with high frequency radios, and it seems like every other low frequency one, there's always something that ends up happening in there that we need to tweak and move and isolate and like all that. It's just easy, works first time every time, which I can appreciate.
Well, it kind of led to me about this whole thinking about noise in the system and the servos all pulling at voltages. Because what do they sell? They sell a glitch buster. Have you guys ever seen a glitch buster? You ever take it apart? It's a 22,000 mic cap, big old electrolytic cap. So I think it's 16 volt or 6 volts or 16 volt electrolytic 2200 microfarad cap, and all that's doing is taking that voltage rail and trying to smooth it out. So don't buy a glitch buster. Just email me and I'll send you the part number for the correct cap.
And you want to spark suppress more than motors.
Yeah.
Which
a lot of people they forget about that. That was one of the first things you all taught me, right? Was that low band pass filter. What was it 0.1 caps? We have 2 of those and
0.01 microfarad. Little ceramic job. 2 of those across motor poles to ground, you're fine.
And that's all your motors, not just the drive motor. Put them on your air pumps and everything.
Yeah.
And your mechanical switches, because those are a little spark inducer too.
Cool.
So much to learn yet.
Are you guys talking about interference with low frequency radios?
Yep.
I just caught the very end of that conversation. So For the last few years, I've been messing a lot with PCM radios, which were kind of the high-end radios at the end of the low frequency era. And the big caveat is that it's really hard to find one that's in 75 megahertz. But if you're okay with using 72 megahertz, they work really, really good.
That's the only thing I ever been using. It's PCM 72.
Yeah. And you can find them for dirt cheap because none of the airplane guys use them anymore. And these were radios that were $1,000 when they were new.
Yep.
Well, I just got some 72 receivers. Can I use that with my 75 radio?
No, they got to be tuned.
If you can set PPM, PCM, FM, one of the high-end transmitters you can, that gives you the flexibility to match up to your PCM modulation.
Okay. Dipmat told me that he's got guys in Great Britain running 35 megahertz receivers with 75 radios.
No. Probably 40 radios, 40 megahertz.
Okay. Okay.
And they shouldn't be, because here they're quite strict on it and people get big fines and possibly put in prison. So it's not recommended.
Matthew, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just quietly sitting in the background.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, you too, man.
Thanks, guys.
Good stuff. Well, I took some notes about everything that we were talking about. I'll put that up. I was going to say I should put that up on the actual DiveTribe homepage too, so we can start. I mean, it's too bad we got 2 years of videos without it, but almost like a table of contents. So if you ever try and think of what we were talking about and which video it was without having to watch through 25 hours of footage, you should be able to see it. I'll put that on the DiveTribe homepage so you'll be able to see what we talked about. So easy reference if you need to look back again.
Hey, I have a question.
Okay.
For Dave.
Okay.
Dave Merriman.
Oh.
Sorry, Dave. I do have a question for you too, but I got to hit Dave first before we run out of time here. Is there anywhere in all your writings on the forum where you specifically discuss hull finishing? And what I mean by that is I'm getting close to the end of Proteus. I'm ready to start sand. You have a hull, right? Rick's hull. I know you're sitting there with your hand on your head, Rick. So I got this hull, and think of it as right from the manufacturer. Maybe not, because it's sitting around for many years, but I got to start finishing and prepping it for paint. What sandpaper do you start with to get the blemishes and the burrs out? And then
this several times in the form of Cabal reports,
okay,
articles, and they all went to either Mr. Caswell or Mr. Martin. They are not at the forum. I can't.
Okay. You know where they are, or you don't care.
Once upon a time, I submitted this stuff, and it was printed at least one time on the forum as it existed at that time. I leave it up to Bob to dig them out because I can't.
But it's the thing that gets me. There is so much excellent knowledge, and it's all buried, in the forums, and like searching for them and finding specific things can be challenging. They are there. They're absolutely there, but finding them can be a real challenge.
Well, then it might as well not be there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the thing, honestly, and I fall victim to this as well, is it's easier for people to ask the question again than it is for them to search. And so I am
so tired of that.
Yeah.
Enough of that. Do the digging, not your damn servant.
I didn't mean to start something. I'm willing to search. I just wanted to know if I just want to know if they're there.
next to her, please.
Hey, Mr. Townsend, Dave.
Yes,
your
sir.
question. So if I understand you, and I think Jason was just talking about 72 versus 75, 72 is less glitchy than 75?
I've only used 72 with the PCM. Anytime I tried connecting it with like a regular FM receiver, it's just glitch city. So, but with
Okay.
PCM,
PCM
it's
is the
just
thing.
bliss
Okay.
so far. I do have a quick question for Frank again, though. Those little boxes you were mentioning, what are those? What described as, or what? So I can look those up online and kind of research them a bit.
I tried to take a picture of the, hold on a second, I'll get it again.
So these are like little micro junction boxes. Is that what they are?
They're little project boxes, and
Okay.
I got them on Amazon, and I have a bag of them right here. So I'm gonna. I think I took a picture of the part number on the bag, but this is all they are. These little tiny boxes. They screw together. And you know, the wire comes in the end. Where am I? In the end, the one side and out the other side. And then, like I said, I drill a hole on the top here, and I just inject silicone grease in it once it's in there, and it stays nice. I mean, if you have to take it apart, it's a little gooey, but better that, you know, I use it on stuff that I don't have to take apart. So, you know, if something breaks and you have to take it apart, well, you got to take it apart. But this is the I'll see if I can get a picture of it here.
I got it. I think I got what you're talking about kind of pulled up here. At least this is one kind of them. These might snap together. I mean,
yeah,
screw, but this is and look at all the different sizes they have.
Yeah, these snap together, but I put a 256 screw in each corner just to keep it a little tighter. And yeah, there's all different sizes, and like I said, they're cheap. I mean, I got bags of them because I use them, you know. So I was looking for a way to make some way to seal the servo connectors, and I've come up with a few ways, but you know, even a silicone tubing with, I cast some silicone corks, and I just make a little slit, put it over the servo wire, and then push it into the bigger silicone tube, and that seems to work too. But like I said, it's a lot of work, but I'll get there, and hopefully when I get there, I'll make it known, and everybody can try it. And Bob, you could you know, show it off or whatever, and use it and sell it if you want. I don't care, you know.
No, that sounds good. So like that should be on this video if you guys go back and you need the actual link, but it was Zulkit project boxes.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Bob.
My number's on the DiveTribe captain's thing. If you ever want to call me, feel free to call me. I have, you know, I'm retired. I've got nothing but time on my hands.
Cool stuff. All right, we're at the hour. Last chance for questions or show offs or problems or opportunities.
I was just going to show something off to Steve Hodges. This is the printer he needs.
No, Delta printer, love it. I had a Wasp. Yeah.
It goes 400 millimeters a second, and has a 300 millimeter by 410 height.
By the way, and I don't want to volunteer you anymore, Frank, but Frank's got a great pulley and crane system in his shop for moving subs around. And I played Fitz getting some videos from him, but I finally did. He's got a great system. And Frank, if you want to consolidate that into like a PDF or something, that would be great.
What's a PDF?
PDF. Or, you know, do a separate website on a video, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But it's great. I want to compliment you, Frank. It's a great system.
Thank you. I just did that not because I can't pick the sub up. It's only 80 pounds, but when I try and pick it up, because it's so long, I do so much damage to it. So this way, it just suspends. I just flip it around, turn it around, do whatever I got to do with it. And it just settles back down again.
And I tell you, that water isn't light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We've been testing the that big Baleo. I think hopefully we got one more and it should be done, provided that ballast tank stops leaking. But when you first pull that 10-foot boat out of the water, that's some weight. Like I'm thinking it's at least 160 or 180 pounds of water.
And just to let everybody know that I appreciate everybody saying how beautiful my sub is and this, and that. And it is 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. But this is my first sub, and the proof is going to be in the pudding when it goes in the water. I'm not saying stuff isn't going to happen. And, you know, I'm not saying everything I did is perfect. And like when things happen, I'll be asking everybody, what did I do wrong? You know, this, and that. And I'm not above being criticized because I take it as constructive criticism. So I just wanted everybody to know and say thank you for all the you know, nice work and all that stuff. So thank you.
Well, it is you've inspired, I know, more than one person here with your, you know, attention to detail and stuff. I'm excited to see that boat in the water. You said you're going to try and bring it to Groton?
I'm going to try and bring it to Groton. Yeah.
Well, now I have to come. So.
It'll be nice to see the second, third, fourth sub. If that's your first one.
Yeah.
That's the first one. Nautilus is the second one, and it's already halfway done. There's nothing to it. There's no missiles. There's no torpedoes. There's no crash doors. It's, you know.
When did you start working on the Sea View? When did you start at all? You know, from the beginning?
About 4 years ago. Yeah. And a lot of work, not just a night here and a night there. My wife is standing next to me and she could attest to. I live on top of this boat. So.
All right, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to sign off. We'll get this uploaded. And like I said, I'll put the list up on the DiveTribe. And the next one, in that email out that I sent, I put our next one because I have a travel schedule that comes up, which means I can't hit the Saturday. So we're going to do it the Wednesday before I travel. So it's like April 5th or something like that is the next DiveTribe. Just so you know, but that's all on the events page. So you can always check there.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Yep. Have a great night. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you all.
Have a good one all. See you soon.